All right, so this is class two. This is the price action training class. All right. So we're gonna be building off of the first class, because you can't do this if you don't know the basics, right? So, last class we learned about the basics of the chart, the basic functions of it, how to use the time frame, levels, patterns, things of that nature. And today we're gonna be implementing that. Um, and then next class we're gonna be talking about a couple actual strategies with it. So the way I like to analyze a chart is I like to always start from a large time frame. Okay. So you always want to start from like a daily chart or weekly chart. That's what I recommend. So I like to start from the daily the most. And the first thing you want to do is recognize the trend. All right. So notice we're using words that we had to learn what they were from last class. Number one, you want to recognize the trend on the larger time frame. So the trend here is obviously bullish because we've been making higher highs and higher lows for the most part. Okay. We've been making higher highs and higher lows. So we know the trend is upward. All right. After you find the trend, I then like to ask myself, okay, do I see any patterns or levels that tell me that this stock is about to continue in this trend, or can I identify the place where the trend will continue? All right. I'm looking for patterns that will tell me that this trend will continue, or I'm looking for the level that's going to let me know at this point the trend will continue. All right. So looking at SPY, you can see here that we've kind of been in a huge range, right? So we've kind of been ranging for quite some time. This range started back in November. We've been ranging for November, December, January, February, almost 3 months. So for 3 months, in the grand scheme of things, we've done nothing in the market. All right. So important to note that we've been stagnant. Okay. So since we have been ranging, we think about, okay, do we see any patterns? A range isn't really a pattern, but what it does give you, if it gives you two places to where you can say, okay, we will break down from here and we will break to the upside from here. So this is when we start using another one of our pillars called levels. Okay. We have a range. We need to see where's the top of the range that will give us a move. Where's the bottom of the range that will give us a move? And how close are we to those points? So if we look at SPY, the top of the range, you can take the all-time high here. That would be the safest bet. The safest bet would be to take the all-time high, but I wouldn't be mad if you kind of move it down around here either, right? So safe bet all-time high is above 410.7 ish. But if you want to kind of be an early bird, needs to break 409, right? So we got this level around 608.5. You got a little wick above there. So the 608 to 610 area is what we need to break. All right. So that tells us anything under that, we risk getting chopped up. That's the risk. How do we know that's a risk? Because that's what it's been doing. Chopping, 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 chopping. Look at this move right here. I've been doing this for 6 years now. I've never seen a chart like this. This is impossible to trade, especially swing trading. You have to day trade right now for sure. So we know since this has a range, the next up move It's not gonna come until around 608 to 610 is broken. To be safe, let's say 610. So how far are we from that? $7. We're quite a bit away. All right. Now we gotta ask, what about the downside? At what point can we really say, okay, we're going down? We can't really say that until we start breaking 578. So we will need to break this 578 level. You can see we have it here. We have it multiple touches here, right? A lot of touches there. So this 578 is a very crucial level. All right. So with just two lines, I can tell you the next big move is not going to come until either 610 is broken or 579 or 578 is broken. So what do you do with that information? What do you do in the meantime? In the meantime, you're gonna have to either sit on your hands or you're gonna have to scalp and day trade. Because remember, this range is gonna tell you that it's gonna be choppy inside of here. We've been inside of this for 3 months. So until we break out, every pop is probably gonna get shorted, and every drop is probably gonna get bought the same way it's been doing for the past 3 months. Okay, so we are a lot closer to the upside breaking out than the downside at the moment. Now we do have data that comes out in the morning that can send us right back down again, and at that point it's gonna be so aggravating. Um, but literally, that's exactly how it analyze spot chart. You're not gonna get the next move until 610 for upside and 578 for downside. Like that's what it is. All right. And then you start thinking, okay, if that's where the move occurs, how far is it gonna go? To the upside, you don't know. All right. You don't know because this is the all-time high. Now, as far as downside, to find out how far you can go, you simply need to start finding levels to the downside. All right. So we do have around a low point right around here at 568. So off rip, you have 578 to 568. That's close to a $10 drop. And it's not saying that it's going to get there super quickly, but you do have room. All right. Now, the problem with that is you're about $30 away. That's the problem. You are super far away from this even playing out at the moment. So honestly, at this point, you gotta just wait. It's nothing else you can really do right now. You have to scalp, get in your trades, get out, and wait until the range to be broken. That's really all you can do. And we started out analyzing SPY because usually how SPY goes, the overall market goes. Without SPY, almost nothing else will have a significant run. You may see a lot of stocks hitting levels and coming back down. That's because SPY is very choppy. If SPY was breaking out, you would see those stocks break out. All right. So literally, that is all I would do for SPY. That is it. You see the range. So once you see a type of pattern, quote unquote, you need to find out where or what level correlates to that pattern for a move to the upside or downside. SPY, you got a range. It has to break either 578 or 610. Can you nitpick? And here's because you might say, "Well, man, this is a $30 range. Like, you ain't gonna nitpick on anything inside of here." You can, But the thing is, where's the next significant move? You want to be picky. You only want to trade the best setups. The best setup is going to be if it breaks out of this bigger move or if it breaks down from this bigger move. So you got to keep that in mind. Let me know, does that make sense? Does that make sense? We use three levels in a box. Simple. And what basic pillars that we use? We use trend, we use levels, we use patterns. Those simple things we learned yesterday, this is what we use to analyze this. So we know exactly where the next big move is going to come. And once again, I'm not saying you can't trade inside of this because there has been some plays, we're seeing Nvidia kind of go up on Monday. Um, you can trade inside of it, but you got to take your profits and go. So hopefully that made sense. Let's look at another stock. This is a good one. This is a good one. Now, sometimes a stock won't have a setup in my eyes. All right. PLTR would be an example of that. Because if we start looking, we can just basically see that PLTR has been crazy strong. Okay. Now we start thinking about, okay, does it have a pattern or where's the nearest level? The nearest level is the all-time high. And we don't really have a pattern. As of right now, we're in the up move. Okay. But let's think. When we have a up move, we know that we have to pull back. What type of patterns can occur due to a pullback? That's how you got to start thinking. Right now, there is no setup. But what setups can occur because we already have a run, we have a significant move. What types of patterns can occur on a pullback here? See if anybody can get it. All right. Yep, exactly. One thing I would look for is a bull flag. You already have the up move. So what you could possibly see is this right here. Okay. And if you see that, you'll be looking to trade it to the upside. And from that point, we have to say, okay, is this still the same nearest level, or is there a smaller one that we can take up to the all-time high? Okay. So we are using our basic principles to predict what is likely to happen. And I'm not saying it's about to pull back now. Who knows, right? Because it's still a strong candle. So we could keep running. But if it does pull back, this is what you want to watch for. All right. Probability is everything. Okay. Now, as far as the downside risk, because you have to be aware of downside as well. The downside risk for PLTR is if it gets below 99.5. Below 99.5, you have a gap fill down to 84. All right. So you got a gap fill down to 84. You have a lot of room to downside if you get below that. But anything above that, you will look for some type of pattern. You could have that flag, or you could also possibly get some type of pennant pattern. All right. So trading is this is really a bunch of if this, then this type of statements, right? So everything we're doing, we're thinking about things that haven't happened yet. All right. So we're saying if this happens, then we do this. If this, then this. If this, then this. Like that's literally what you are doing, right? Because as you study the charts more and more, you will notice that this is the most predictable, unpredictable instrument ever. Like you can easily predict it, and it's super hard to predict. I will say it's kind of like you know what's going to happen, but you don't know how it's going to do it. Think about how many times that you've played a stock that you was like, man, I know it's about to go up, and you lost on a trade just to see it work out later that day or later that week. You know what's going to happen, but you don't know the fine details of how it's going to do it. All right. So this is one that I would say it isn't ready yet. So we did all of that analysis for a stock that is not ready. It's not ready yet, but you already know what to look for. Okay. So is this one on your immediate watch list? For me, it's not. It's not for me. Some people might want to try to play the all-time high, but I mean, you can, but I would look for a setup. I would look for some type of pullback. Hope that makes sense. We're using basic principles to put probability in our favor. I'll show you guys this because it does have a setup. NVIDIA. NVIDIA, now clear this off. NVIDIA here, you can see they had a gap that we're trying to fill. That would be the first thing that I kind of see there. All right. Now, at this point, we did have bullish divergence, but I'm not going to talk about that too much because it has already played out. I would talk about what we have now. Right now, you say, do we have a setup or a level that we know that it can go up or down if it hits? We know that it is in the middle of a gap fill. So how far away is it from trying to fill the rest of it? 149. The gap fills at around 142, close to 142. So when you have your levels, especially when you're not at all-time highs, you have to find how far can this go? And the question that you have to ask, remember this, the question that you have to ask is how far can it go? And is this enough to make money relative to the stock? How far can this go? Levels. And is this enough to make money relative to the stock? And I'll tell you what I mean by that in just a second. So 134.90 to 142, is that enough room for you to make money? Let me know if that's enough room for y'all to make some money on NVIDIA. How far is that exactly? It's like $7 almost. $7 enough for y'all to make some money? Of course. All right. So $7 on NVIDIA is a lot, right? Now, what about this is still a decent move? Okay, I asked you this before. All right, so you don't need the whole $7 to make money on Nvidia. Let's say that you just get $2. That $2 is still enough for you to make money on Nvidia. But what if you're trading Tesla? Is $2 a $2 move? Is that really worth it on Tesla? If you have a key level on Tesla at, let's say, 300 and your next key level is at 302, is that worth it to you? And I show you guys that to just say every move is different on every chart. A $2 move on Nvidia is really good. A $2 move on Tesla, it ain't really nothing. What about a $2 move on something like KO? A $2 move on KO is a ton. All right. So each move is different for the stock. So always ask yourself, how far can this go? And is that a lot for the stock? Is that enough for me to make money? So we know that you got the level. All right, you got your levels. So it looks good at 134.90. Is there a chart pattern? Let's dig deep. We was on the daily. Now we're coming down to the 4 hour. What do we have here? You got a run up. Hmm. What is this stock doing? What is this called? Anybody know the name of this? Yep, the bull flag. So what do we do here? We're using, let's go back to our basic principles. What do we use? Number one, we use our time frame, right? We looked at it from the daily and saw that it had a gap. We had our levels. That's the second principle that we use to say, okay, this is a nice move. We use our time frame again, doing our top-down analysis. So say we have a move, we see that it's pulling back a little bit. Let's see if it's forming some type of pattern. And this is forming the bull flag pattern. Remember, bull flag pattern is a continuation pattern. You're only looking to trade it from the direction which it came. So we're looking to trade it to the upside. All right. So this is a setup. The question is, when do you get in? You can do this a lot of different ways. A safe way that some people would get in, they would say, okay, well, I'll wait for it to start filling the gap. I think that's cool. If you want to play it super safe, that's cool. Because although you would be late on the flag breakout, you would be right on time for the gap fill. Now, if you just want to kind of have a little bit better entry, you want to say, well, I'll take the break of the flag and I will just look for this as one of my take profits or something, and then I'll ride it up into the gap. You can say, okay, where can I expect it to really move again? We got to go back to our levels. If I'm looking at this and I'm thinking of, okay, this is a counter trend right now. We know the overall trend is bullish, but it's pulling back. This needs to break this counter trend high, right around there somewhere, right around there. So around 133.85. If it breaks that, that's the point where you could try to front run it because as of right now, it's trying to make these little lower highs at the moment. It'll be breaking that if you break this point here. So not only will you be breaking a level, you also be breaking the flag. What's that P word? Probability. If we're breaking a level and we're breaking a pattern, it's a lot more probable for it to try to go up than it is to go down. The one thing that you have going against you right here is SPY. Preferably, you want SPY to be, breaking out. But we did see that Nvidia can go on its own. It did Monday. Okay, so that is Nvidia. Nvidia has a nice bull flag setup. We just broke that down all the way from the daily chart to the 1 hour chart. We found a entry. We know that a target here after this could be this high. And after that, you'd be inside of the gap field. So we found a stop. We had a setup. We found our levels, which gave us our entry. Let me know does that make sense. Every stock isn't like that. You see, we just had POTR, which I said I wouldn't watch at the moment. Let me know does this Nvidia make sense? Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Look at another one. What's next on the list? Let's see. What's next? AMD. It's a decent one too. AMD. So the divergence on it, at this point, it didn't really take off on the divergence. Right now, you do have a little bit of a gap. You got from 113.25 to around 114.8. So that is enough for you to make money, but it doesn't really have a setup, so to say. It's kind of just trying to inch up, right? It can still go, it can still work, but I hope you see the difference on this one and NVIDIA. NVIDIA, we had our uptrend, we had our clear pattern, and we had a place where we know it could go. Now, a place that I will say you definitely want to watch out for, this one is a little bit further away. I would be watching out for a break around here, very close to 120. The reason I say that is because what you have right now is a series of lower highs. Oh, I should have done the other way. Lower high, lower high, lower high. Okay. What will break this trend is breaking above the lower high. And of course, we need to trade above it. Doing this will be breaking actually like a level here too. So we'll be breaking a level, we'll be breaking our trend, and we'll also be breaking our trend line. A trend line acts as a support or resistance. So notice how that was a resistance, but notice what has been the support. This, here, right? And all I have to do, of course, I could line it up a little bit better. Y'all can see. There you go. This has been acting as a support. We've been coming down here and bouncing. Support, resistance. So we will be breaking trend line, breaking the level, and we really didn't even have to leave the daily chart. This one's simple. How far away is it? It's $8 away. It's $8 away. So although this is something important I want y'all to take too. Although you are scouting out a play and you find a play, it doesn't mean that it's ready yet. It doesn't mean that it should be on your watch list for tomorrow. It's $8 away. All right. So this is one that I would just set alerts on. You want to set an alert, and when it goes off, you already know what time it is. No need to keep watching it because you already know you aren't going to get any upside until you break here. No true upside. Now, downside, you can also look at that because one person might see this and say, okay, trade above here. Somebody else might say, well, it might keep going down. All right. And the place that it can go down, if we break under this 106.5 level, and I already did the homework for you, the next level really ain't until the 90s. So we have to go back to even see it. If we break here, our next level is here. So let me ask y'all, 106 to 94. Is $12 enough for you to make money on AMD? Of course it is. Okay. So although you might have shares of AMD or you might have shares of AMDL, don't neglect the downside because you're probably gonna make more trading the puts than what you are gonna make with the shares anyway, unless you have a bunch of shares. All right. So don't be afraid to trade against your positions too. Don't be afraid of that. I'm ready to tag Tesla to the downside if we get more of it. Okay. So for a significant upside, you got to break 120 for AMD. Downside is gonna get ugly if 106.5 breaks four more puts. Simple as that. Is this one ready yet? No. What do? Set alerts. Okay. Nvidia is closer to being ready than that one. So we really don't have one that's just like, oh, this is on super watch right now. Because even that one is still a couple dollars away from possible entry. And this is why I say all the money is made before the market opens. A lot of times you don't have to spend forever during the day because you already know what you're watching. If you go through this like we're doing and you set your alerts, all you gotta do is wait on the alerts to go off. You don't even gotta look at the screen. You already know at this level, it's more than likely to do this because my pillars added up and told me that. If it breaks down here, it's more likely to do this because my pillars added up and told me that. All we're doing now is taking what we learned and putting it together to read the price. And take note that we haven't said anything about an indicator yet. You don't need an indicator. You need to understand what the charts say, what these candles say. All right. Now I'll show y'all the play that I like, that I'm waiting on. So this is a firm. If we was to look at a firm here, we can see that they gapped up, right? So they had earnings. One thing that I will tell you is if you look at the chart, there's no setup, right? Not yet. But what you do have a level. You got a level. You got a breakout. Hmm. We got a level. We got a breakout. I would be looking for the retest. Okay. I would be looking for the retest. This could be a possible, and notice that it hasn't happened yet. This is what you're doing a lot. You are saying, if this, then this, if this, then this. We're talking about stuff that hasn't happened at all. AMD has not hit 120. AMD has not hit 106.5. NVIDIA has not broken out the flag. You're preparing for it to happen, and you already have in mind what you're going to do. All right. Reading these charts is being able to, number one, you need to be able to see what's going on now. And number two, you need to be able to predict what is more probable to happen next. Okay. You need to be able to understand what's happening now and be able to predict what's more probable to happen next. So if we come back down here to 73, what would I like to see here? Notice that I said last class on our levels, it keeps coming back to those basic principles. When I talked about levels, I said a stop can be a resistance in one place and be a support in another. So we're looking for this to come back down and turn this previous resistance into a support to take it back up again. Now, I also said what's also important when it comes to levels is what happens at the level. That's your confirmation. Remember our candlesticks, OCW. It's about the open, the close, and the wick. You see long bottom wicks, that means buyers are in. Long top wicks, sellers are in. So imagine if we get here and we see a candle with a long top wick. That means sellers have stepped in for that session, and you might want to be patient. Definitely don't get in yet. But imagine if we get back down to this level and we form a bullish hammer or bullish pin bar, however you call it, right, with a long bottom wick. I would have a lot of confidence that this thing is probably going to push back up because that candlestick is telling me that buyers are in. So once again, is this ready yet? No, it's not. But will it happen? Eventually, it probably is going to happen. And we'll revisit this when it does. All right, got one more to show y'all that I like. PayPal, basic principles. We have a level right here, right? So notice we're using past data. Past data is helping you determine what's more probable to happen in the future. If it's been bouncing here before, you want to bet your money on it bouncing there again. All right, that's what's more probable to happen. So we know PayPal is near a level. Couldn't quite close above it today. But if it regains it, this could be a decent play to get into, right? Because you're just playing the bounce here. Oh, I don't know what that was. Let's see. We're playing the bounce here. Notice when it came back to it this time, went to 81. When it came back to it again, gave him two chances before it started dropping, went 87. So we had 81 on the first run, 87 on the second one. What this third one gonna be? Who knows? All right. Also, take note that we are right near the 200 MA. So if we reclaim the 200, that could be bullish as well. All right. So have PayPal on watch. Once again, is it ready right now? No, but we are preparing for it to be ready. This is how I make my watch list. Everything isn't always ready to go right now. All right. Some things you're going to be waiting on it to play out for like a week, maybe longer. Or you could spend all this time charting and this thing goes down, which I mean, that's what happens sometimes. So think about the basic principles that we talked about on this stop. We use levels, we use the indicator, we use those candlesticks. I hope you guys see how the basics are starting to come back every single time. I don't do anything hard. I use the basic concepts. I just understand them at a high level and I can put them together. We're talking about the same stuff that we talked about yesterday. Nothing changed. All right. So that is literally how I read a chart. Now as far as entry, we're gonna be talking about that in the final class, right? So at this point, we talked about the basics to get you there. We talked about how to put them together to find a play. Now you need to know how to execute a play. That's the last part. We talked about the basics, talk about how to use the basics to find a play. Now we just got to talk about how to execute it. That's going to be using the intraday strategies, or the break and retest can be used on day trades and swings. It doesn't matter because this is really nothing more than break and retest here. It's another retest. All right. So I hope that this made some type of sense. Like I said, this class wasn't going to be super long because literally this is the same criteria that I use for every single stop, right? And if I don't see, nothing on the daily chart, not near level, doesn't have a pattern, I move on to the next one. Simple. All right. So I hope that this made sense. And at this time, I'll see if anybody has any questions at all. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat, or you can do the raise your hand to unmute. If not, that is the price action training. This is exactly how I read price. I use the same principles that we talked about last class. All right. The next class, or the last class, is going to be Sunday. I don't know if I'll do it at 8. I might do it a little bit earlier. Just because it's Sunday, people gonna be home. But on the last class, so we'll be talking about the break and retest. So once again, we went from class 1, giving you the basics. Class 2, showing you how to implement the basics. Class 3, how you execute on the basics. All right. And notice every class we're just building upon what we learned. And once again, if you want more in-depth breakdowns, you want longer explanations and things like that, make sure to check out the YouTube, the RJ's Pillars of Options Trading. Literally, Those are real classes, right? So those are literal the first four classes of my most recent mentorship. So if you wanna you wanna really learn, you'll watch them. All right, because those have everything. Everything's broken down. So that's really what I got, man. I appreciate y'all for hopping on. I hope that this was helpful. If it was helpful in any way, if you learned anything at all, if you can drop testimony or whatever, those help more than anything, really. I really appreciate those. Well, I appreciate y'all taking a little bit out of your night to spend with me. I'm gonna get me a little food here before I have to go to work. So I appreciate y'all hopping on. If y'all got any questions, just shoot me a message, man. I appreciate y'all spending the night with me. I'll see y'all later.